Captain Hune stood on the bridge of the massive colony ship New Dawn. Through the wide windows he could see Earth getting smaller and smaller. The planet looked sick. Brown clouds covered most of the land. The oceans were black with poison. This was not the blue and green world his grandfather had told him stories about. "Sir, all ships are ready for jump," said his second officer, Lieutenant Kai. 2 million people across 50 ships. That's everyone we could save. Hyun nodded, slowly. 2 million out of 8 billion. The math made his stomach hurt, but the alien poison had spread too fast. The Krell Empire had made sure of that when they rejected humanity's offer of peace 5 years ago. He walked to the communication panel. This would be the last message sent from human space for a very long time. Maybe forever. "Open channels to all known alien civilizations," he said. His voice was calm, but his hands shook a little. "Full broadcast. Maximum power." The communications officer, a young woman named Sue, looked up at him. "Sir, that will tell everyone exactly where we are. The Krell will—" "I know what they'll do," Hyun cut her off. "Send it anyway." The red light on the panel turned green. Hyun took a deep breath and began to speak. "This is Captain Hyun of the Human Confederation. I am broadcasting this message to all intelligent species in known space. Today, humanity leaves our home world of Earth. Your governments and your people have made this necessary." He paused and looked out at the dying planet one more time. 50 years ago, we reached out to you with open hands. We offered trade, friendship, and knowledge. We shared our art, our music, our stories. We asked only for a place in the galactic community. You laughed at us. You called us primitive. You said we had nothing to offer. His voice got harder. 20 years ago, when the plague started killing our crops, we begged for help. We offered everything we had for the medicine to save our world. The Krell Empire told us the price was half. Our population as slaves. When we refused, you made sure the poison spread faster." Sue was crying now. Many of the bridge crew were. They all remembered the vote in the Global Assembly. The terrible choice between slavery and death. "We chose death over chains," Hyun continued. "But some of us are leaving. We take with us the memory of what you did. We take the knowledge that when we needed mercy, you gave us only cruelty." He stepped closer to the microphone. "So hear this warning, and hear it well. We offered you our friendship once. We will never make that mistake again. Remember this day. Remember that you had the chance to welcome humanity into the galaxy as brothers. Instead, you chose to make us your enemies." The captain's voice dropped to almost a whisper, but the microphone picked up every word. "We are leaving now. We look weak. We look broken. Many of you will try to hunt us down for sport or slaves. Some of you will succeed. But remember this moment. Remember when you had the choice to let us live in peace." He straightened up and looked directly into the camera. "Because the next time we meet, things will be very different." The transmission ended. The bridge was quiet except for the hum of the ship's engines. Far away in the command center of a Krell battlecruiser, Admiral Doc watched the human message with 3 other officers. When it ended, he started laughing. "Did you hear that?" he said, his voice bubbling with amusement. "The little humans are making threats. 50 ships full of refugees, and they think they can scare the Krell Empire." His second in command, a tall Krell with dark blue skin, pointed at the screen. "Sir, should we intercept them? The ships are moving slowly. We could catch them easily." Doc waved a clawed hand. "Of course we'll catch them." but not all at once. Let them run for a while. Let them think they're safe. Then we'll hunt them down one by one. It will be more fun that way." The other officers laughed too. Humans were known across the galaxy as a weak species. They had no real weapons, no strong ships, no useful technology. The only thing they were good for was manual labor. "Send word to all Krell fleets," Doc ordered. "Any human ships they find are to be captured, not destroyed. Live slaves are worth more than dead bodies. But make sure they know we're coming. I want them to be afraid." What Admiral Doc did not know was that the human message was being received in other places too. Deep under the surface of Earth, in bunkers that went down miles into the rock, millions of humans were still alive. General Mira sat in the main command center, watching the same broadcast on a dozen screens. Around her, hundreds of people worked, at computers and communication panels. They had been preparing for this day for 5 years. "Phase 1 is complete," reported Colonel Nam, a man with scars on his face from the early days of the plague. "All colony ships are away. The aliens think that's all of us." Mira nodded. She was a small woman, but everyone in the room was a little afraid of her. She had been planning this moment since the day the Krell first laughed at humanity's offer of friendship. "What about our people on the ships?" asked Dr. Yuna, the head of the science division. "They know their jobs," Mira said. "Some ships will be captured. That's part of the plan. Our people will learn everything they can about alien technology and biology. Others will reach safe systems and start building what we need." She stood up and walked to the main display. It showed the positions of every human ship, every known alien fleet, and every major world in this part of the galaxy. "The aliens think they've won," she said quietly. "They think humanity is finished. Let them think that. While they celebrate, we'll be working." Dr. Yuna looked worried. "General, some of our people might really die out there. The aliens aren't known for being gentle with prisoners." Mira's face was hard as stone. "Yes, some will die, some will suffer, but their sacrifice will not be forgotten. Every drop of human blood spilled by these aliens will be paid back with interest." She touched a button on the display. Red dots appeared across the galaxy, marking every major alien world and military base. "They had 50 years to be our friends," she said. "Now they'll learn what it means to be our enemies. Begin Phase 2. Across the underground complex, people started moving with purpose. In the weapons labs, scientists began working on new types of bombs and poisons. In the computer centers, hackers started writing viruses designed to attack alien systems. In the medical bays, doctors studied alien biology, looking for weaknesses. Above them, Earth continued to die. But below the surface, humanity was getting ready for war. Not the kind of war the aliens expected, with big ships and loud explosions. This would be a different kind of war. A patient war. A war where the enemy would never see the attack coming until it was too late. The hunt was about to begin. But the aliens didn't know who the real hunters were. 8 years had passed since the human ships left Earth. Now they were scattered across the galaxy like seeds in the wind. To anyone watching, it looked like a broken people running for their lives. Engineer June stood in the engine room of the transport ship Hope's End. But this wasn't really a human ship anymore. 3 months ago, Krell pirates had captured it. Now blue-skinned aliens walked the halls thinking they owned everything on board. June wore the gray uniform of a slave worker. His head was shaved, and he had numbers tattooed on his neck like all the other human prisoners. The Krell thought he was just another mechanic, good only for fixing their machines. They were wrong. "Human 247, called Supervisor Vec, a fat Krell with cruel eyes. "The main drive is making noise again. Fix it." June bowed his head like a good slave. "Yes, Master Vec. Right away." He walked to the engine core, carrying his tool kit, but hidden. Inside the normal tools were other things. A small computer, special wires, tiny devices that looked like spare parts but were really something else. While he worked, June listened to the Krell officers talking. They didn't think slaves could understand their language. Another mistake. Every human child learned alien languages now. They had to, for the plan to work. "The supply convoy arrives tomorrow," one officer said. 40 ships full of weapons and food. "Good," replied another. "The attack on the Vex border worlds needs those supplies." June kept his face blank, but inside he smiled. The information was already being stored in his hidden computer. Tonight, when the Krell were sleeping, he would send it to the others. Across the galaxy, Dr. Hana worked in a different kind of prison. The research station orbiting Krell Prime looked like a palace, but it was still a cage. She wore the white robes of an honored guest scientist. The Krell wanted her to help them build better weapons. She was helping them, just not the way they thought. "The new plasma rifle design is ready for testing," she told Director Zoke, the head of Krell Military Research. She handed him a data pad with plans and numbers. Zoc looked at the design with greedy eyes. "Excellent, Dr. Hana. These weapons will make our soldiers even stronger." What he didn't know was that Hana had built a hidden flaw into every design. The weapons would work perfectly for about 6 months. Then, small parts would start to fail. Computer chips would burn out. Power cells would explode. By the time the Krell figured out what was wrong, thousands of their weapons would be useless. Meanwhile, Hana was learning everything about Krell technology, how their ships worked, what their computers were like, where their factories were built. All of it went into her secret reports, sent out through channels the aliens could never find. On the ice world of Kepler 442b, the humans looked like simple farmers trying to survive. Leader Wu walked through the small settlement on the surface, checking the food gardens and water collectors. Krell inspection ships flew overhead sometimes, but they saw nothing interesting. Just another group of human refugees trying not to freeze to death. Underground was a different story. Miles below the ice, massive tunnels connected dozens of hidden cities. Factories worked day and night, building weapons and ships. Millions of humans lived and worked in the warm caverns, preparing for a war that might not start for years. Wu took the elevator down to level 15 where the main war room was located. The walls were covered with maps and screens showing every part of the galaxy. Red dots marked alien military bases. Blue dots showed human positions. Green dots were alien worlds that might be turned against their masters. "Report," Wu said to the duty officer. "Message from Engineer June on the Hope's End," the officer replied. "Krell supply convoy, 40 ships, passing through the Vega system tomorrow. Light escort." Wu nodded. "Send word to Captain Sung's squadron. They're to observe only. No attacks. Yet." It was hard to wait. Every human wanted revenge for Earth. But General Mira's orders were clear. Watch, learn, and prepare. The real war would come later. On the jungle world of Tau Ceti Prime, Dr. Yuna's laboratory looked like a simple medical clinic. Alien inspectors who visited saw doctors treating sick human colonists. They didn't see the research happening in the deep caves below the jungle floor. Dr. Yuna held up a test tube filled with clear liquid. It looked like water, But it was something much more dangerous. Her team had spent 5 years studying alien biology, learning how their bodies worked, finding their weak spots. Test 847 is ready, she told her assistant, Dr. Moon. This version targets Krell respiratory systems. It will look like a natural disease. Dr. Moon checked his notes. What about the Vex? Their biology is different. We have something special. For them, too, Una replied, pointing to another set of test tubes. Each species gets its own gift. We want to be fair to everyone. The biological weapons were just one part of the plan. Una's teams were also working on other projects. Drugs that would make alien soldiers more likely to surrender. Viruses that would attack alien computer systems. Even special pheromones that would make alien leaders fight among themselves. Back in space, the human colony ships continued their slow journey to nowhere. At least that's what it looked like. Admiral Doc's Krell fleets had captured 12 ships so far. Each time, the humans seemed surprised and helpless. They begged for mercy and offered no real resistance. Doc was getting bored with the hunt. These humans are too easy, he complained to his officers. Where's the sport in catching prey that won't even run? What he didn't know was that every captured ship was part of the plan. The humans on those ships had volunteered for the most dangerous job of all. They would live as slaves and prisoners, learning alien secrets and preparing for the day when the trap would be sprung. On Earth, General Mira watched reports from across the galaxy. The data came in through hidden transmitters, secret codes, and messages hidden in normal communications. Piece by piece, humanity was learning everything about their enemies. Status report, she said to Colonel Nam. Phase 2 is ahead of schedule, Nam replied. We have agents on 47 alien worlds. Our people in the captured ships have identified weak points in Krell military structure. Dr. Yuna's biological weapons are ready for deployment. Mira nodded, but she didn't smile. There was still so much work to do. What about the Vex coalition? She asked. Intelligence operative Lex has made contact with 3 rebel groups inside Vex space, Nam reported. They hate their Krell masters. With the right push, they might turn against them. Good. Begin Phase 3 preparations. But remember, no one moves until I give the order. We get one chance at this. If we fail, humanity is finished. Across the galaxy, the scattered humans continued their work. To the aliens, they looked weak and broken. But beneath the surface, a storm was building. Every day, humanity grew stronger, while their enemies grew more confident. The aliens had ignored the warning. Soon they would learn what that mistake would cost them. Admiral Doc felt the burning in his lungs and knew he was going to die. The air in his personal quarters had turned poison 20 minutes ago. His guards found him on the floor, gasping like a fish out of water. The medical team worked frantically to save his life. They pumped clean air into his lungs and flushed the toxins from his blood. It took 6 hours, but he survived. How? Doc asked the chief medical officer when he could finally speak. The air recycling system malfunctioned, Dr. Kex replied. It mixed industrial chemicals into your personal atmosphere, but sir, this wasn't random. The mixture was specifically designed to target Krell biology. Someone tried to murder you. Doc sat up in his medical bed, his mind racing. This was the moment everything changed. For months, he had been seeing reports of accidents and equipment, failures. Now he knew the truth. Someone was hunting the hunters. Intelligence Officer Lex worked in the communications center of the Vex Coalition command ship Retribution. To her alien supervisors, she was just another human slave, good only for translating messages and maintaining equipment. They had no idea she was humanity's most dangerous spy. For 2 years, Lex had been copying every message that passed through. The ship's computers, fleet movements, supply schedules, diplomatic communications, everything went into her hidden memory banks. But today, she was doing something different. Today, she was changing the messages. Her fingers moved carefully across the keyboard as she edited a communication from Vex High Command to their fleet commanders. The original message ordered an attack on rebel forces in the Outer Rim. Lex changed the target coordinates by just a few numbers. Instead of attacking rebels, the Vex fleet would bomb their own supply depot. Message sent, she reported to the duty officer, keeping her voice neutral. Good, the officer replied without looking up. Process the next batch. Lex had been doing this for weeks now. Small changes to orders and reports. Nothing big enough to be noticed, but enough to cause confusion and mistakes. The Vex were starting to fight among themselves as commanders blamed each other for the mix-ups. On the Krell homeworld, Agent Bin had been working as a translator in the Imperial Palace for 5 years. The aliens thought he was completely loyal because he had helped them interrogate human prisoners. What they didn't know was that every prisoner he had helped interrogate was actually a volunteer. The screams were fake. The information they gave up was carefully prepared lies. And every time Bin walked through the palace halls, he was memorizing layout plans and guard schedules. Today, Bin sat in the high-security archives, translating old documents for the Imperial historians. While he worked, he was also copying the location of every major military base in the Empire. The information went into a hidden drive smaller than his fingernail. Worker 1247, called Archive Master Gek. The High Admiral wants to see the files on the human refugee situation. Bin bowed respectfully. Of course, Master. Which files specifically? All of them. Fleet positions, captured ships, prisoner reports. He wants a complete picture. Bin gathered the requested files, but he also made copies. Within hours, General Mira would know exactly where every human prisoner was being held and which fleets were hunting the remaining colony ships. Meanwhile, Communications Officer Rowe was doing the most dangerous job of all. He worked in the main command center of Krell Battle Fleet 7, the unit tasked with hunting down human refugees. His job was to send messages between ships and coordinate fleet movements. What the Krell didn't know was that he had been sending their ships into carefully prepared traps. Sir, Rowe said to Fleet Commander Talk, we've received a distress signal from Grid 447. A human colony ship is requesting help. They say their engines are damaged. Commander Talk's eyes lit up with greed. Excellent. Set course immediately. Alert all ships to prepare for capture operations. Rowe sent the orders, but he also sent a hidden signal to Captain Sung's human squadron hiding in the asteroid field near Grid 447. When the Krell arrived expecting helpless refugees, they would find a fully armed battle group waiting for them. Textide. Pattern was becoming clear to those who knew how to look. Admiral Doc gathered his most trusted officers in a secure meeting room aboard his flagship. The walls were lined with metal that blocked all electronic signals. Gentlemen, Doc said, his voice still rough from the poison attack, we are at war, not with the Vex, not with rebels, but with an enemy we underestimated. He activated a holographic display showing incidents across the Empire over the past 6 months. Red dots marked every accident and malfunction. Look at the pattern, he said. Industrial facilities destroyed. Communication networks compromised. Supply lines disrupted. And now, direct assassination attempts. This is not random. This is a coordinated military campaign. Intelligence Chief Heck studied the display. "Sir, if this is an attack, who is responsible? Our forces have eliminated or captured most of the human refugees." "Have we?" Doc asked. "How many humans do we have working in our facilities? How many prisoners are helping with translation and maintenance? How many slaves are working in our factories and shipyards?" The room went quiet as the officers realized what he was suggesting. "You think the humans are sabotaging us from within?" asked Chief of Security Zal. "I think we've been infiltrated," Doc replied. "I think every human we captured was a spy. I think every refugee ship we took was full of agents. And I think they've been preparing for this war while we thought we had already won." Commander Yek looked skeptical. "Sir, with respect, these are primitive beings. They don't have the technology or training for this kind of operation." Doc pulled up another display. This one showed the technical specifications of the poison used in his assassination attempt. "This chemical compound doesn't exist in nature," he said. "It had to be designed specifically to target Krell physiology. That requires advanced knowledge of alien biology and sophisticated chemical engineering. The humans who built this are not primitive." The realization hit the room like a cold wave. For months, they had been thinking they were hunting scattered refugees. Instead, they had been at war with an organized enemy. "Orders, sir?" asked Heck. "Round up every human in the Empire," Doc commanded. "Prisoners, slaves, workers, everyone. I want them all questioned under deep interrogation. Find out which ones are agents." What Admiral Doc didn't know was that his own communications officer was listening to every word through the ship's internal monitoring system. Within an hour, Agent Rowe had sent coded warnings to human cells across the Empire. The war was about to become much more dangerous. On the research station where Dr. Hana worked, security teams began arresting humans without warning. Hana barely had time to activate the self-destruct sequence she had built into the station's main computer before they reached her laboratory. The explosion destroyed 3 years of Krell weapons research and killed dozens of their best scientists. In the chaos, several other human agents managed to escape. On Vex Prime, Jin received the warning just as security forces surrounded his factory. He triggered the charges he had hidden throughout the industrial complex and disappeared into the underground tunnels his people had spent years digging. Behind him, 6 more factories went up in flames. Across the Empire, the same scene played out on dozens of worlds. Human agents activated hidden weapons, destroyed critical facilities, and vanished into escape routes they had prepared years in advance. The Krell had finally realized they were at war, but they were already losing. On Earth, General Mira watched the reports with grim satisfaction. Phase 4 had cost them many good people, but it had achieved its goal. The aliens finally knew they were fighting humanity. "Status report," she said to Colonel Nam. "We've lost 60% of our deep cover agents," Nam reported, "but they took critical infrastructure with them. Krell industrial capacity is down 40%. Their communication networks are in chaos. What about our remaining assets? Still in place? The aliens think they caught all our people, but our best agents are still hidden. Dr. Yuna's biological weapons are ready for deployment. Engineer June has gained access to the central command codes for the Krell fleet." Mira nodded. "Then it's time for Phase 5. Send the activation codes. Let them see what humanity looks like when we stop hiding." Across the galaxy, the message went out on frequencies only humans knew. After 10 years of preparation, the real war was about to begin. The message came from everywhere and nowhere at once. Every communication device in the galaxy received it at exactly the same time. Military networks, civilian broadcasts, even personal communicators. All of them carried the same signal. General. Mira appeared on screens across 1,000 worlds. She stood in what looked like a simple command center, but the technology visible behind her was clearly advanced. Holographic displays showed detailed maps of the galaxy. Computer systems hummed with quiet power. "Citizens of the galaxy," she began, her voice calm and clear. "My name is General Mira of the Human Resistance. For 10 years you have believed humanity was defeated. You were wrong." On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Doc watched in horror as his own screens displayed the human general's face. He tried to shut off the transmission, but his communications officers couldn't stop it. "The signal is coming through every system," reported Chief Technician Val. "It's embedded in our own network somehow. We can't block it." Mira continued speaking. "When our worlds burned and our people died, you thought we would beg for mercy. Instead, we went to work. While you celebrated your victory, we prepared for war." The display behind her changed, showing detailed technical specifications of Krell, ships and weapons, information that should have been classified at the highest levels. "You see these documents? They came from your own military databases. We know the location of every base, every fleet, every weapons depot in your empire. We know your security codes, your supply schedules, your strategic plans." Admiral Doc felt his blood turn to ice. The humans were showing information that only a few dozen beings in the entire empire should have known. "How?" he whispered. Engineer June sat in the engine room of the captured ship Hope's End, watching the broadcast with the other human prisoners. The Krell guards were too shocked to stop them. "Impossible," said Supervisor Vec. "Humans are slaves. They can't access our networks." June smiled. "Actually, we can." He pulled out a small device that looked like a standard repair tool. But when he activated it, every system on the ship began responding to his commands. "Computer, display my real credentials," he said. The main screen showed his true identity. Chief Engineer June, Human Cyber Warfare Division. Below that were access codes for every major system in the Krell fleet. "I've been copying your computer networks for 8 years, June explained as the guards reached for their weapons. "Everything you do, we know about." Before the Krell could react, the ship's defensive systems turned on them. Stun beams dropped the guards unconscious. Automated systems began releasing all the human prisoners throughout the vessel. The same scene was playing out on ships across the galaxy. Humans who had seemed like helpless slaves were revealing themselves as trained agents with access to alien technology. On the screen, General Mira was still talking. "Perhaps you're wondering how we learned so much about your civilization. The answer is simple. You taught us." The display showed images of human prisoners working in alien facilities. But now their activities were revealed in a new light. "Every human you captured was a volunteer," Mira explained. "They allowed themselves to be taken so they could study your technology and biology. Every slave you put to work was gathering intelligence. Every prisoner you interrogated was feeding you lies while learning your secrets." Intelligence officer. Lex stood up from her workstation aboard the Vex command ship Retribution. Around her, alien officers were staring at the screens in shock. "Surprise," she said. She pressed a button on her hidden communicator. Throughout the ship, doors began locking automatically. Life support systems in alien quarters switched to a gas that would make the occupants sleep. In minutes, the entire command vessel was under human control. "This is impossible," gasped the ship's captain as the sleep gas began affecting him. "You're just a translator." "Actually," Lex replied, "I'm the one who's been editing your orders for the past 2 years. Did you enjoy attacking your own supply depots?" Dr. Yuna appeared on the broadcast next, speaking from her hidden laboratory on Tau Ceti Prime. Behind her, walls lined with biological samples and chemical equipment were clearly visible. "While we learned about your technology," she said, "we also studied your biology. We know how your bodies work. We know your genetic codes. We know your weaknesses." She held up a vial of clear liquid. "This is a virus designed specifically for Krell physiology. It will look like a natural disease, but it targets genetic markers found only in the ruling class. We have similar weapons for every major species in the galaxy." On his flagship, Admiral Doc suddenly felt very sick. He looked at his hands and saw small red spots appearing on his skin. "Medical team to the bridge!" he shouted. But when he tried to activate the intercom, nothing happened. The ship's computer systems were no longer responding to his commands. Engineer June's voice came through the speakers instead. "Hello, Admiral. I've been working on your ship's computers for quite some time. Did you know that I helped design your life support systems? I made some improvements." Doc realized he was breathing poison, the same type of attack that had nearly killed him in his quarters. But this time there was no escape. General Mira was reaching the end of her broadcast. "For 10 years, you believed you were the hunters and we were the prey. Today you learn the truth. Humanity has been hunting you since the day you poisoned our world." The display behind her showed the positions of human fleets throughout the galaxy. Ships that had been hidden for years were revealing themselves. They were not the primitive vessels the aliens expected, but advanced warships built with technology stolen and improved from a dozen species. "We offered you friendship once," Mira continued. "You chose to make us your enemies. Now you will face the consequences of that choice." The broadcast ended, but its effects were just beginning. On 1,000 worlds, human agents dropped their disguises and activated hidden weapons. Industrial facilities that had been sabotaged for months finally collapsed completely. Communication networks went dark as viruses spread through every connected system. Agent Ben walked calmly through the Imperial Palace on the Krell homeworld. Guards tried to stop him, but their weapons wouldn't fire. Their communication devices were dead. Even the doors wouldn't obey their commands. "The security system recognizes me now," Ben explained to a confused palace guard. "I've been programming it for 5 years. On the ice world of Kepler 442b, massive doors opened in the frozen surface. Ships began rising from underground hangars. Not the simple transports the aliens expected, but sleek warships armed with weapons that combined the best technology from across the galaxy. Captain Hyun stood on the bridge of the battleship Retribution, the same name he had carried when humanity fled Earth. But this ship was nothing like the refugee vessel that had carried survivors away from their dying world. "All ships report ready," said his tactical officer. "Begin Phase 6, Hyun ordered. "Show them what humanity looks like when we're not hiding anymore." Across the galaxy, human fleets began moving toward their targets. The aliens had spent 10 years thinking they were superior to humanity. Now they would learn why that had been a mistake. The war was no longer hidden. The hunt had begun. And this time, everyone would know who the real predators were. Captain Hyun's fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Krell military system of Regulus Prime. 24 human warships appeared where empty space had been moments before. The Krell defenders were not ready. "Sir," reported the tactical officer on the enemy command station, "unknown ships have entered our system. They don't match any known design." Defense Commander Grok looked at his screens in confusion. The ships were sleek and dark, like nothing he had ever seen. Their energy signatures were strange, showing technology that seemed impossible. "Open communications," he ordered. "Demand identification." The main screen lit up with Captain Hyun's face. Behind him, the bridge of his ship was clearly visible. Advanced displays, efficient crew stations, technology that looked decades ahead of anything the Krell possessed. "This is Captain Yun of the Human Confederation Navy," he said calmly. "You have 30 seconds to surrender your stations and ships." Grok almost laughed. "Human? You're refugees. You have no military." 25 seconds, Hyun replied. "Fire." "On those ships!" Grok ordered his gunners. "Show these primitives what real weapons can do." The defense platforms opened fire with their heavy plasma cannons. Beams of energy that could destroy battleships lanced toward the human fleet. They harmlessly bounced off invisible shields. 15 seconds, Hyun said, his voice unchanged. Grok stared at his weapons display. His most powerful guns had done nothing, not even scratched the human ships. "How is that possible?" he whispered. "Time's up," Hyun announced. The human ships fired back. But these weren't normal energy weapons. Engineer June had spent years studying Krell technology, learning its weaknesses. The weapons he designed specifically targeted the molecular structure of Krell alloys. The defense platforms didn't explode. They simply dissolved, their metal hulls turning to dust in seconds. "Impossible," Grok breathed. Then the same weapons hit his command station. Within 10 minutes, the entire defense system of Regulus Prime was gone. The human fleet hadn't lost a single ship or fired more than one shot per target. Similar scenes were playing out across the galaxy. Former maintenance worker Jin led a strike team through the underground tunnels of Vex Prime. The passages he had, built during his years as a slave, now carried assault troops directly into the heart of the planet's government district. "Target building is ahead," he reported to his team. "Security systems are already under our control." The Vex had no idea what was happening. Their sensors showed nothing unusual. Their guards received normal status reports, but the humans were walking through their most secure facilities like they owned them. "How do we get past the energy barriers?" asked Sergeant Park, one of Jin's soldiers. Jin smiled and pulled out what looked like a standard maintenance tool. "I designed them. They don't affect humans carrying this frequency generator. They walked through the barriers as if they weren't there. The Vex guards on the other side never knew what hit them." Intelligence Officer Lex stood in the command center of the captured Vex ship Retribution. Around her, her team was systematically taking control of the entire Vex fleet by sending false orders through the compromised communication network. "Admiral Kex's battle group is turning toward the Gamma sector," reported her communications specialist. "They think they're responding to a human attack." "Excellent," Lex replied. "What's actually in the Gamma sector?" "Admiral Yak's supply fleet. They're going to attack their own people." Lex had been planning this moment for 2 years. Every message she had edited, every order she had changed, had been building toward this. The Vex military was about to tear itself apart based on false information she had been feeding them. On the ice world of Kepler 442b, the hidden shipyards were working at full capacity. Ships that had been built in secret for 10 years were finally launching. These weren't copies of alien designs. They were something entirely new. Leader Wu watched from the main control center as squadron after squadron rose from the underground. Hangars. Each ship carried weapons and defenses that combined the best technology from every species humanity had studied. Fleet status? He asked his tactical coordinator. 800 ships operational and launching, came the reply. Destination, Krell Core Worlds. What about our special cargo? Dr. Yuna's biological weapons are loaded and ready for deployment. Each ship carries enough material to sterilize an entire planet. Wu nodded grimly. The Krell had poisoned Earth. Now, they would learn what it felt like to have their own worlds turned against them. Dr. Yuna herself was aboard the lead science vessel, Nemesis. In the ship's laboratory, she made final preparations for humanity's most terrible weapon. The virus is ready for atmospheric deployment, she told Captain Sung. Once released, it will spread across the entire planet within 72 hours. What? About innocent civilians? Asked her assistant, Dr. Moon. There are no innocent Krell, Yuna replied coldly. They voted for the leaders who poisoned our world. They celebrated when our people died. They all bear responsibility. The biological weapon was designed to target specific genetic markers found in Krell DNA. But Yuna had built in a special feature. It would only affect those with certain genetic patterns that indicated noble birth or military service. The common Krell citizens would live, but their rulers would die. It was more mercy than the Krell had shown humanity. Agent Bin walked through the abandoned halls of the Krell Imperial Palace. The building's security system now recognized him as the highest authority. Thanks to 5 years of careful programming, Emperor Dak was barricaded in his private chambers with his remaining guards. They had weapons, but the palace defenses were all under human control now. Your Majesty, Bin called through the reinforced door. May I suggest surrender? Your fleets are destroyed. Your worlds are under attack. Your people are dying from diseases you cannot cure. Never! Came the muffled reply. The Krell Empire will not bow to primitives. Bin shrugged. Very well. He activated a control on his wrist device. Throughout the palace, the air recycling system began mixing in a special gas Dr. Yuna had designed. It would put the aliens to sleep without killing them. Humanity had learned to be precise in their revenge. Admiral Doc was dying in his medical bay when the reports started coming in. His empire was collapsing faster than seemed possible. Sir, gasped his communications officer, fighting the effects of the poison in his own system. Regulus Prime has fallen. The defense fleet at Kappa Centauri is gone. Our colonies in the Outer Rim are under attack. How many ships have we lost? Doc asked weakly. All of them, sir. Every fleet that encountered human forces has been destroyed. Or captured. That's impossible. The humans only had 50 refugee ships. Apparently not, sir. Our intelligence estimates they have over 1,000 warships, all using technology we don't understand. Doc closed his eyes. He had spent his career hunting what he thought was weak prey. Instead, he had been fighting a predator that had been studying him the entire time. Send surrender terms to all remaining Krell forces, he whispered. Tell them to lay down their weapons. Sir, some of our commanders refuse to surrender. They're calling for last stands on their homeworlds. Doc almost smiled despite his pain. Then they'll learn why the humans don't negotiate anymore. On Earth, General Mira watched the tactical displays with satisfaction. Red dots marking alien strongholds were going dark one by one. Her people had done their job perfectly. Casualty report? She asked Colonel Nam. Minimal human losses, Nam replied. The aliens weren't prepared for our technology or tactics. Most of their forces surrendered without fighting. What about the ones who didn't surrender? Dr. Yuna's biological weapons are being deployed now. The stubborn ones will be dead within a week. Mira nodded. She felt no satisfaction in the killing, but she felt no regret either. The aliens had chosen this path when they poisoned humanity's homeworld. Begin Phase 7, she ordered. Time to show the galaxy what happens to those who threaten humanity. Across the stars, human fleets continued their advance. They moved with purpose and precision, striking targets that had been identified years in advance. There was no random destruction, no wasted effort. This was not revenge. This was extermination, carried out with surgical precision by people who had spent a decade learning exactly how to destroy their enemies. The hunt was going exactly as planned. The Krell homeworld of Prime Dactos had never seen an enemy fleet in its skies. For 1,000 years, it had been the center of an empire that ruled half the galaxy. Its orbital defenses were legendary. Its people had never known fear. That changed when Captain Huon's fleet arrived. "Citizens of Prime Dactos," came the broadcast from the human ships. "You have 1 hour to evacuate your planetary leadership. Emperor Dak, the High Council, and all military commanders must report to the designated landing zones for transport. Comply, and your civilian population will be spared." Defense Coordinator Zek stared at the screens showing the human fleet. There were only 30 ships, but they had somehow passed through 3 defensive lines without taking any damage. "How many of our ships did they destroy?" he asked his tactical officer. "None, sir. They just disabled them. Every ship they targeted had its weapons and engines shut down. Our crews are alive but helpless." Zek didn't understand. The humans had the power to destroy the entire defense fleet, but they had chosen not to kill anyone. It didn't make sense. "Sir," reported another officer, "the Emperor has responded to the human demands, and he refuses to surrender. He's ordered all civilians to remain in their homes. He says the Empire will never bow to primitives." Zek felt a chill run down his spine. He had read the reports from other worlds. When the humans gave warnings and they were ignored, terrible things happened. "Sir, what are your orders?" Zek looked at the human ships on his screen. They were just sitting there, waiting, patient, like predators that knew their prey had nowhere to run. "Prepare the civilian evacuation ships," he said quietly. "But, sir," the Emperor ordered. "I don't care what the Emperor ordered," Zek snapped. "Get as many people off this planet as possible. Do it quietly, and do it now." He was right to be afraid. Exactly 1 hour after their warning, the human ships moved into attack position, but they didn't fire weapons. Instead, they began dropping small objects into the planet's atmosphere. Dr. Yuna watched from the bridge of the science vessel Nemesis as her biological weapons entered the air supply of Prime Dactos. The virus she had created was her masterpiece, a weapon that could tell the difference between rulers and citizens. "Deployment complete," reported the weapons officer. "Full atmospheric saturation in 6 hours. What about the civilians who refuse to evacuate?" asked Captain Sung. "They'll be fine," Yuna replied. "The virus only targets genetic markers associated with the noble bloodlines. Common citizens are immune." Within hours, the effects began. Emperor Dak was found dead in his private chambers, his body showing signs of a disease that looked completely natural. The High Council died in their meeting room. Military commanders across the planet succumbed to what appeared to be a sudden plague. But the ordinary Krell citizens remained healthy. The salt humans had kept their promise. They spared the innocent and killed only those responsible for the war. Similar scenes played out across the Krell Empire. On the military world of Gamma Station, Admiral Tur ignored the human surrender demand and ordered a last stand. His fortress was the strongest in the galaxy, built into a mountain and protected by energy shields that could withstand any attack. The humans didn't attack the fortress. Instead, Engineer June's cyber warfare team simply turned off the life support systems. Admiral Tur and his staff suffocated in their impregnable fortress while their soldiers, who had been given breathing equipment by maintenance workers years earlier, survived to surrender. The Vex coalition was collapsing even faster. Intelligence Officer Lex had spent 2 years turning their own communication networks against them. Now their fleets were fighting each other based on false orders. Their supply lines were in chaos, and their government was paralyzed by contradictory commands. On Vex Prime, former maintenance worker Jin led his strike team through the empty halls of the government complex. The leadership had fled hours ago, leaving behind only automated defenses. "Too easy," commented Sergeant Park as they walked past disabled security systems. "I built most of these systems," Jin replied. "Of course they don't work against us." They reached the main computer core, where Jin began uploading the final virus that would shut down every remaining Vex military installation in the galaxy. "What happens to the Vex people after this?" asked Park. "They survive," Jin said. "But they'll never be a threat to anyone again. Their military is finished. Their government is gone. They'll spend the next century just trying to rebuild basic civilization. The humans weren't interested in genocide. They wanted to remove threats, not wipe out entire species. But for those who had directly harmed humanity, there was no mercy." Agent Bin stood in the Imperial Palace on the Krell homeworld, looking down at the sleeping form of Emperor Dak. The gas Dr. Yuna had designed would keep him unconscious for days. When he woke up, he would be the last of his bloodline. The biological weapon had already killed every member of the royal family except him. Bin had made sure the Emperor survived, for a specific reason. "Wake up," Bin said, injecting a stimulant into the Emperor's arm. Dak's eyes opened slowly. "Who? What?" "My name is Agent Bin," the human said calmly. "For 5 years I worked in your palace as a translator. You never even looked at me. To you I was just another slave." The Emperor tried to sit up but found he was restrained. "What do you want?" "I want you to understand something," Bin replied. "Your empire is gone. Your fleets are destroyed. Your people are dead or scattered. And it all happened because you ignored a simple warning." He activated a holographic display showing the current state of the galaxy. Where once the Krell Empire had controlled hundreds of worlds, there was now nothing but human fleets and dark space. "Impossible," Dak whispered. "My people offered you friendship 50 years ago." Bin continued. "You laughed at us. You called us primitive. When we begged for help saving our world, you demanded half our population as slaves." The Emperor's face was growing pale as he realized the scope of what had happened. "So we decided to teach you a lesson," Bin said. "We spent 10 years learning everything about you. Your technology, your biology, your weaknesses. We placed agents in every corner of your empire. We prepared weapons specifically designed to destroy you." "But why?" Dak asked, his voice breaking. "Why didn't you just attack us directly?" Bin smiled coldly. "Because we wanted you to know it was coming. We wanted you to realize that every accident, every malfunction, every disaster that struck your empire was our doing. We wanted you to understand that you created your own destruction the day you chose to be our enemies instead of our friends." The Emperor began to cry. The weight of his empire's extinction was crushing him. "What happens to me now?" he asked. "You live," Bin replied. "You get to spend the rest of your life knowing that your arrogance destroyed everything your people built over 1,000 years. You get to carry the guilt of every Krell who died because of your decisions." On Earth, General Mira watched the final reports come in. The Krell Empire was extinct. The Vex Coalition had collapsed. Dozens of smaller alien governments had surrendered without a fight. "Total casualties?" she asked Colonel Nam. "Approximately 50 million alien military personnel and government officials," Nam reported. Civilian casualties were minimal, less than 1% of the affected populations. Mira nodded. The numbers were large but precise. Every death had been planned and targeted. There had been no random destruction, no innocent blood spilled, out of anger or revenge. What about our own losses? 312 personnel killed in action. Most died in the early phases when our agents' covers were blown. 300 humans to destroy 2 galactic empires. The ratio was almost unbelievable. "Begin Phase 8, Mira ordered. "Time to address the rest of the galaxy." She walked to the main communications center, where a transmission was prepared to broadcast to every remaining alien civilization. It was time to make the new rules clear. "People of the galaxy," she began, her image appearing on screens across 1,000 worlds. "The Krell Empire and Vex Coalition are no more. They ignored humanity's warning and chose to be our enemies. You have seen the result." She paused, letting the words sink in. "To the remaining governments and peoples, humanity offers you the same choice we offered the Krell 50 years ago. Peace and cooperation or war and extinction. Choose wisely. We will not give this warning twice." The transmission ended, leaving the galaxy in stunned silence. For the first time in recorded history, humanity was the most powerful force in known space. And everyone now understood that they had earned that position the hard way. The hunt was over. The new age had begun. 1 year after the fall of the Krell Empire, Fleet Admiral Hyun stood before representatives of 47 alien species in the Great Assembly Hall on New Geneva Station. The station itself was a symbol of humanity's new position in the galaxy. Built in just 6 months using technology taken from their defeated enemies, it was larger and more advanced than anything the aliens had ever imagined. The beings gathered before him were not the proud rulers who had once dismissed humanity as primitive. They were survivors, representatives of civilizations that had watched their former masters fall in a matter of weeks. Their faces showed fear, respect, and desperate hope. "Welcome to the first Galactic Assembly under human authority," Hyun began, his voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. "You are here because your governments chose to accept our terms for peace. Those who refused are no longer with us." Ambassador Keth of the Andorian Republic shifted nervously in his seat. His people had been allies of the Krell for centuries. When the humans had offered terms, the Andorian Council had debated for 3 days before finally voting to surrender. "What are your demands?" asked Representative Vox of the Centauri Federation, her voice barely steady. Hyun activated a holographic display showing the new map of the galaxy. Human territory now covered what had once been the Krell Empire, with additional zones marked in blue. "Our terms are simple," he said. "First, complete disarmament of all military forces above system defense level. No species under human protection. We'll maintain fleets capable of interstellar warfare." Murmurs of distress rippled through the assembly. For these civilizations, their military fleets had been symbols of power and independence for thousands of years. Second, Hyun continued, full technological and scientific cooperation. All research and development will be shared with human oversight. No weapons research will be conducted without human approval. Ambassador Keth found his voice. Admiral, our people have been independent for 4,000 years. You're asking us to become vassals. I'm not asking, Hyun replied calmly. I'm telling you what will happen. You had the opportunity to be our equals 50 years ago. You chose to make us your enemies. Now you get to live as our subjects. The chamber fell silent. Everyone present understood the alternative to cooperation. Third, Hyun said, tribute payments will be made annually to the Human Confederation. Resources, manufactured goods, and personnel will be provided according to quotas to be determined by our Economic Council. Representative Vox stood up shakily. Admiral, some of our worlds are barely surviving. How can we pay tribute? Then, you should have thought of that before you supported the empire that poisoned our homeworld, came a new voice. Engineer June entered the chamber, flanked by other key figures from humanity's victory. Intelligence Officer Lex, Agent Bin, Dr. Yuna, and dozens of the people who had brought down the alien empires walked to positions around the assembly. These are the beings who spent 10 years living among your people, Hyun explained. They know your capabilities better than you do. The tribute quotas will be fair but firm. Dr. Yuna stepped forward, her presence causing several aliens to move backward in their seats. Her biological weapons had killed millions of their leaders, and her reputation was legendary. We know exactly what each of your worlds can produce, she said. We know your population levels, your industrial capacity, your resource reserves. Do not attempt to deceive us about your abilities. Former maintenance worker Jin was overseeing the construction of massive shipyards in orbit around the former Krell homeworld. The same factories that had once built ships to oppress other species were now producing vessels for the human fleet. Progress report, requested Fleet Admiral Hyun during his weekly inspection. Ahead of schedule, Jin replied. We're incorporating the best technology from 17 different species. The new ships will be 50% more powerful than anything we used in the war. Hyun nodded as he watched alien workers assembling human warships under the supervision of former saboteur teams. It was poetic justice. The enemies who had once enslaved humans were now building the tools of their own subjugation. What about resistance movements? Hyun asked. 3 minor groups attempted sabotage operations last month, Jin reported. Agent Bin's intelligence network detected them before they could act. The leaders are now working in the dilithium mines on Kepler 438b. The human approach to resistance was simple and effective. They didn't execute rebels. They put them to work in places where their skills could benefit humanity while keeping them under constant surveillance. On Earth, the transformation was remarkable. The poisoned world that humanity had fled was now green and blue again. Alien technology had cleaned the oceans and restored the atmosphere. Cities rose from the ground where only ruins had existed a year before. General Mira walked through the gardens of New Geneva, the rebuilt capital. Flowers that had been extinct for decades bloomed around pathways where alien prisoners tended the plants under human supervision. Status report, she said to Colonel Nam as they paused by a fountain. Global reconstruction is 90% complete, Nam replied. Population has reached 500 million and growing. The birth rate is the highest in human history. What About our defensive positions? We have battle fleets stationed at every major hyperspace junction. Any ship entering human space is immediately identified and tracked. Nothing moves in this galaxy without our knowledge. The humans had learned from their enemies' mistakes. They would never again be caught unprepared by a superior force. On the former Vex homeworld of Prime Vex, the survivors were learning to live under human rule. The planet's new governor was Captain Sung, the same officer who had once commanded stealth operations against alien supply lines. The population is adapting well to the new system, reported his aide, a former Vex military officer named Tex, who had chosen collaboration over resistance. Crime is down 70% since we implemented human legal codes. What about productivity? Up 40%. The work quotas you set are actually lower than what the old Vex government demanded from its people. Sung nodded. The humans ruled firmly but fairly. They had no interest in cruelty for its own sake. They simply wanted to ensure that these species could never again threaten humanity. Intelligence Officer Lex had been appointed as the director of the new Galactic Intelligence Service. Her network of agents and informants spanned every world under human control. Any signs of external threats? General Mira asked during their monthly briefing. The hegemony of the Outer Rim is discussing possible action against us, Lex reported. They think they might be able to challenge human authority if they unite their fleets. How long until they're ready to move? 2 years, minimum. But I have agents working to prevent that alliance from forming. A few carefully placed rumors about each species' loyalty should turn them against each other. Mira smiled. Good. I'd rather not have to demonstrate our capabilities again, but if necessary, Dr. Yuna has already developed biological weapons specific to each Outer Rim species, Lex confirmed. If diplomacy fails, we can eliminate their leadership within weeks. The old Emperor Dak sat in his comfortable prison on a human-controlled world, reading reports about the galaxy he had once ruled. He was the only surviving member of the Krell royal family, kept alive as a reminder of what happened to those who opposed humanity. Agent Bin visited him monthly, bringing news and ensuring his health remained good. The human wanted the former emperor to live a long life, carrying his guilt. The Andorian Republic has exceeded their tribute quota for the 3rd consecutive month, Bin reported during his latest visit. Their people seem to be adapting well to human governance. Dak looked up from his reading. They're afraid. All of them are afraid. Good, Bin replied. Fear keeps them honest. It prevents them from making the same mistakes you made. Do you enjoy this? Dak asked. Ruling through terror? Bin considered the question seriously. We don't rule through terror. We rule through competence and strength. The fear is a side effect of your people realizing that we're better at this than you were. It was true. Under human administration, trade flowed more smoothly, conflicts between species were resolved more fairly, and technological advancement proceeded faster than it had in centuries. The galaxy is more peaceful now than it has been in my lifetime, Dak admitted reluctantly. That's because we don't allow wars, Bin explained. When everyone knows that humanity will intervene in any conflict with overwhelming force, people find diplomatic solutions instead. The Pax Humana was not maintained through constant violence. It was maintained through the demonstrated capability for violence when necessary. Fleet Admiral Hyun stood in the observation deck of the orbital command station above Earth, looking down at the blue and green world that had been restored to its former beauty. Around him, displays showed the positions of human fleets throughout the galaxy, maintaining order across hundreds of worlds. Sir, reported his aide, The annual assembly is ready to begin. Representatives from all subject species are requesting permission to present their tribute reports. Hyun nodded. Let them know we'll begin in 1 hour.